What is trans guy voice or T voice? How does it happen? What can be done about it? Why do people care? If you're not trans yourself, or you don't know many of us, you might not even know what I'm talking about. But if you're a friend of us or one of us, you're probably already aware. It's a very particular vocal styling that is often found among people who are assigned female at birth and have been on long-term testosterone. And you get a voice that isn't quite like a cis man or a cis woman. It's a bit of a lower pitch, but it might be a little bit more nasally, and you often have a cadence in your voice that is read as more feminine. I know coding particular voices as masculine or feminine is problematic, but I'm generalizing for the sake of this conversation. Now, vocal trainer Renee Yoxon actually has a whole post on their website about this phenomenon. They describe the voice as characterized by a thick vocal fold mass, which you can hear as sort of a buzziness. There is a slight drop in pitch from that person's baseline and a relatively bright resonance. And this type of voice is more likely to result if a person takes testosterone later in life, say over 30, because the cartilage of their larynx is ossified, which means it can't grow with testosterone to create more space for those vocal folds to vibrate. And this can limit how much the pitch of your voice is gonna drop on T. However, I will also point out that I started testosterone as a teenager, and I still definitely fall within this T voice range. And that's because it's not just about the impacts of hormones on your body, but also ingrained vocal habits. Certainly, I can push my voice to lower ranges. If I bring it down here, it might feel like it has a bit of a darker resonance. However, that is not something that's necessarily comfortable for me all the time. And when I'm excited about something, I just want to be present and be able to express myself how I want and not be constantly pushing myself back down into that lower vocal range. I will say that I am very rarely clocked as having like trans voice, and instead I'm usually read as being just like a really gay guy because there is this particular stereotype that gay men have almost an accent. There's a whole wiki entry on this topic. It is a particular type of vocal styling, and it's something we might put on intentionally, or it might be something that we just grow up doing naturally. And yeah, not all gay men talk like that, but we can recognize that it is a stereotype. And in fact, I would suspect that this is just the tip of the iceberg for what I would consider queer vocal stylings across the board. I couldn't find a wiki entry on lesbian voice, but I bet you're thinking of one right now just because I brought it up. Personally, I think of Natasha Lyonne and that sort of raspy styling, and I know she's not a lesbian, but like, God, is that not a crime against humanity? Anyways, that's beside the point. And what I find interesting about the phenomenon of gay voice is that it's very much connected to this idea of gender nonconformity. A gay man speaking in a way that is not stereotypically masculine is considered outing himself, even though we know gender and sexuality are not always the same thing. Now, I will point out that this type of speaking, this voice, is not inherently a problem. I'm certainly very comfortable with it, and like I said, it often doesn't mean that I'm being clocked as trans, but instead read as a gay guy, which I am, so that's fine with me. But I know that some people can feel dysphoric about it, or they might be concerned that it could out them, so if you're worried about that, there are options like vocal training. Now, I happen to know many trans women who have pursued vocal training to try to raise their voice, because the thing about testosterone is, once your voice drops on it, it just doesn't go back up. So a lot of trans women who had testosterone in puberty then go through vocal training to try to develop a softer, more feminine voice, which might be something that's important to them as part of their transition. And in fact, trans masculine people can do the same thing. We do have the benefit of our hormones sort of giving us a boost in that regard, but there are also other ways to bring out the darker resonance of your voice or change your vocal style to be read as more masculine. And there are also some people who go as far as having surgery to alter their voice. There are a few options for trans women and trans femmes in this regard. For trans men, there's mainly one called thyroplasty type 3, and it's a surgery that lowers the frequency of the voice by decreasing vocal fold tension. Basically, you remove a section of cartilage from the larynx and loosen the vocal cords to lower that pitch. And if voice training or surgery are part of your journey, power to you. I will also point out that there are cis guys who talk like this, because this is just the way some people speak. Some that come to mind off the top of my head would be Griffin McElroy. In fact, if any of the McElroys came out as trans men, I wouldn't be like shocked. Elliot Kalin, Ira Glass, even Aaron Parnas. Not to try to out these people, I do not think that these guys are trans. I just think that many cis men have what on a trans person would be read as a T voice, but on them just gets read as their voice. And personally, in terms of my own vocal range, I have opted to accept that this is how I talk, this is my voice, and that it's been shaped by a lot of different factors in my life, including my upbringing and socialization, my unique vocal stylings, my long-term testosterone, and the fact that I'm embedded within queer community and surrounded by all of these different queer accents. But hey, what do you think? Have you come across this phenomenon before? If you're trans, have you considered vocal training or even surgery as part of your transition journey? And do you have any further thoughts on what this T-voice phenomenon is really all about? I would love to hear it, so make sure you leave a comment below, subscribe, and I'll see you in a week.